Welcome back to DIVEBOMB IndyCar Podcast, and we're joined by a very special guest this week, the current points leader in Indy NXT, and maybe the time this goes out, the Indy NXT champion. We'll wait and see, but that is, of course, Louis Foster. Louis, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on. I mean, how are you feeling ahead of, first of all, Milwaukee this weekend and then Nashville to close out the season?
Yeah, I mean, confident. We were fastest in both the tests of both Milwaukee and Nashville, and we've won both the ovals so far this year. So, you know, I think this weekend, the goal is just to wrap it up. I think a win would be lovely, but if we can just come away with the championship this weekend, that's all we want.
And we're all hoping that you do get the deal sealed this weekend. And sort of how much would it mean to you to be a champion in the top feeder series to IndyCar amongst so many esteemed names who are in the field and join that established list?
Yeah, I mean, obviously tons. I mean, it's the Indy Lights has been going on for longer than I've been alive. So, you know, it's a very prestigious series, and it not only the financial support you get for winning it, but also, you know, the kind of gravitas that it has around it, being the Indy Lights champion or Indy NXT champion. The only thing that comes close to that in feeder series is obviously winning like Formula 2. So, you know, we're really looking forward to it. We're just hoping we can close that out.
And I was reading back through some of the transcripts the other day, and you were pretty much in championship mode from St. Pete onwards. I think you said you weren't taking huge risks that weekend. You know, how critical is it to win the championship in this second year for you, with everything that's associated with a scholarship? And does that reward kind of add any pressure for you, or is it just an important thing that you're really working hard to get towards?
I think if I didn't win the championship this year, it'd be the end of my single-seater career. You know, I don't have the funds to go up to IndyCar without the prize money. And even still, it's already hard. So, yeah, I think it's super, super important this year was for me. It was a lot of pressure. But, like, I think we just as a team and myself, we just took it one step at a time. I knew that, like, we were the fastest. Like, I knew that we were on our day. If nothing went wrong, we would be the fastest car out there at majority of the circuits, which has been the case this year. So I think when those first 3 rounds kind of happened, and we were, you know, we weren't looking too bad on points, but, you know, we only have 1 podium in 3 races. You know, it definitely was not the best of things, but I knew that it would turn around because it had to. And I knew that we would make it work, and we did. So, you know, there was no desperation, which is hard to do when there's so much pressure.
And then sort of looking at those first 3 rounds, do you just sort of count that to bad luck? Did anything change going into the second Indy race and beyond? Was there a reset, or was it just you had better fortunes from that point onwards?
I got slightly unlucky and messed up at St. Pete in qualifying. I had 2 laps that would have been pole. If you pole at St. Pete, you're usually going to win. Would have been pole. One of them got red flagged with 1 corner to go, and then one of them I messed up. That was St. Pete. Obviously, Barber, we didn't practice or qualify, so we just turned up to the race because of our electrical issues. So, yeah, couldn't really do much about that. And then IMS, yeah, I mean, IMS, when we came 7th, I lost my front wing after trying to put a move in on Kyo, and then he turned it and took it off. That was a racing incident, so I think maybe it was a bit of a opportunistic move from my behalf. So, I don't know. I think there's definitely mistakes in there for sure from my side of things. I think once we were able to qualify more up front, because again at IMS we only qualified I think 4th, so it wasn't a great quali for me. You know, so I think once we're able to qualify up front and just get away from all of the stuff that goes on, we're good to go.
Yeah, and I mean, you've now obviously getting your first oval when you've run on every type of track that Indy NXT IndyCar visits. So what has that process been like moving over from Europe and getting used to kind of racing on these American style tracks? And what were, I guess, the biggest learning curves racing wise coming to Pro 2000 and then NXT as well?
Firstly, the tracks on America honestly aren't too different to the UK tracks. They're very similar in the sense that you've got asphalt or tarmac, and then you've got grass. There's no runoff. It's not like the example I always use is the painted parking lot, which is Paul Ricard. You know, it's a massive piece of tarmac, and they just painted lines over it, right? So you go wide, there's no consequence at all. So stuff like that in Europe, where there's these massive runoffs, we don't get in England, and we also don't get in America at all, really. The only place is IMS. So the difference between the road courses isn't a lot. It's very similar. I would say the biggest culture shock, if you will, is more to do with how the series are run, the way that they are stewarded compared to the UK and with the FIA, whereas America with the IndyCar side of things run quite differently. And I think the way that America does it is much more fun for fans to watch. It's a lot more enjoyable. There's a lot more argy-bargy, and it's a lot more just enjoyable racing. Whereas in a lot of the FIA rules, there's all these track limits and all this and that, and it can kind of really take away from the show of it. So I think as a fan, it's a lot better.
And I mean, I guess the oval side of that is about as pure as it can get. Was there like any fear initially when it came to ovals? Because I know that's what a lot of drivers in the European world kind of say, oh, it's, the danger of it, etc. So like, was there any fear? Was there stuff to adapt to on that side of things on ovals?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the first oval I did was a very small one in Indianapolis called Lucas Oil Racing Park. For sure. I mean, the two biggest things that I struggled with on ovals initially was how close the walls were and like how little margin of effort, little margin of error you had. And then also just like how the car balanced. Like I'm a driver who usually drove quite an oversteery car, like on road circuits. On an oval, it's like oversteering on road course is like opposite lock. Oversteering on an oval is just opening the steering. Like it's nothing because it goes so fast if you do lose it. So just kind of understanding how to set up an oval car, how it's supposed to be driven, the way to drive ovals. There's a lot to it, and especially racing ovals as well. Is like there's a lot that goes into like it's like a chess piece. It's like a chessboard. Trying to make an overtake work on an oval, it's like you really got to think through it and really got to plan laps in advance on what you're going to do. I think this weekend Milwaukee will be, a very difficult one to pass on. So I think that will show quite a lot this weekend.
I'm sure you're sort of delighted how the move to America has gone in the last 2 years. So, 3 years, I should say. So can you talk us through how you came to the decision and why you think generally it's becoming more popular? You've had 3 Brits at some points this year. You've had 2 Irishmen. So sort of get your reflections on that.
Yeah, so obviously I started out in UK, did Ginetta Juniors, British F4, British F3, Euro Formula, and then came up to America. For me, I wanted to stay in single seaters. I really enjoy driving them. And there was no progression that I could have done in Europe. Paying the hefty bill to do FIF3 was not viable for me. So the only other option was America. And I had my eye on IndyCar for a while. So we moved over in 2022 to come and race in Indy Pro. And I think just the support of young drivers they have, especially financial. Also, the racing here is amazing. It's so much better than I've ever experienced in Europe. Like my 2 years of F3 and Euro Formula, I probably did like 4 overtakes. It's just all qualifying. Whereas, in this year alone, we've done, I don't know how many, probably like 50, so it's like, it's so much more fun to race as a driver. But yeah, just the support system that the Road to Indy has and how they promote and look after drivers that do well, it means a lot to me.
On a more personal level, how has it been adapting culture? Obviously, life, I can imagine, is quite different there. So from your personal side, how's that been?
I get asked actually quite a lot. Honestly, not that bad. Like when the way I explain this to American people is, you guys will agree with me, all we consume is American media. Like all the TV shows you watch predominantly and all the movies you watch, they're all American. So the culture shock really isn't there. Like when I first moved to America, it was like I lived in Los Angeles for my first 2 years. So it's quite a cosmopolitan city in itself. So it wasn't too bad. But yeah, the Midwest and, Deep South can be a little bit of a culture shock. But like I said, honestly, you speak the same language, similar foods, similar kind of people, and they're all really nice as well. So it wasn't that bad. It was quite welcoming, and I kind of already understood how America works and understood the culture of it, just purely from growing up and consuming their kind of media, which the world does.
Yeah, and just kind of touching on last year, then going into this year, you got 4 pole positions, a couple of race wins as a rookie in Indy NXT. Maybe consistency, something you've improved on this year, but how close, I know you've spoken about this a bit, but how close were you to making that step up to IndyCar last year? And did you feel you could have made that step and been competitive if the opportunity did arise for this year?
I think pace-wise, yes. I think if you look up how fast I was last year. We were the best qualifier last year by some margin. So I think I had very, very good pace. But after chatting with Rob Edwards, who's the CEO of Andretti, obviously they wanted me to stay for a second year. So that was on their mind. But I kind of chatted to him this time last year about it, and it was just more. It's less to do with like how fast you are, and more to do with how developed you are as a driver. So yeah, if I had had the opportunity to go to IndyCar last year or this year, sorry, I probably would have taken it because it's very hard to say no to that. But do I think I'm a better driver now? 100%. I think pure pace-wise, I would have been pretty similar. I think I would have done well this year in IndyCar, but I think I would have struggled with some of the more intricate things where a second year of Indy Lights and a lot more confidence and winning the championship would have helped me.
I think we asked you this pre-season, but you obviously got the test in the IndyCar towards the back end of last year at Road America. So, I mean, how do you reflect on that experience almost a year on, and do you have anything else planned the rest of the year?
Yeah, it was a great day. Obviously, it was super thoughtful of Andretti to let me ever go in their car. And also a great track to do it at Road America. So it was really good fun. Got to work with the team, got to understand how the IndyCar drives better, understand the dampers. Yeah, it was really good fun. And I think the test went quite well. We did our fastest time in the morning. I couldn't go fast in the afternoon because the track grip wasn't there. So in my mind, that says that we were decent. So yeah, I was happy with how it went. And then, yeah, for this year, yeah, we're talking to teams, obviously. Nothing confirmed yet. Like I said, as you know, it's very difficult still to get an IndyCar. It's not a lot of seats, but we're working hard.
And kind of just going back to what you were saying about feeling better developed this year, are there any like specific benefits you've felt to having that extra year in Indy NXT? And like, you know, what kind of, I guess, bits of your arsenal do you feel are better developed this year, heading into possibly stepping up to IndyCar if you can next year?
Yeah, I think probably two main things is obviously consistency. Just being a lot more level-headed as a driver this year. I think last year there was a lot of moments where I got frustrated in the car and made poor decisions on the track, which definitely didn't help. So that was one of the biggest things last year that set me back quite some way. And then honestly, the way that the clerk of the court, what was it called in America? I forgot what they call it. How they judge like incidents, right? Last year was the first time I had the IndyCar stewards, whereas the year before it was Anderson stewards. And it's very different to how Europe does it. And last year was a lot of things I didn't agree with and a lot of things I didn't understand. And I was always seeing the stewards and talking to them about stuff, just to understand really, like these calls and why they're being made. Whereas this year, you know, it does help when you start up front and just don't have any issues with anyone and just lead the entire time because you'd never get called into the stewards then. But there has been like situations this year where I know what the rules are. I understand what the stewards are looking for, and I haven't seen them once this year. You know, I haven't had to. Whereas last year, yeah, it was a different story. So yeah, it's that was quite a nice thing. It's a nice quality of life thing because once you, as a driver, the biggest thing is it doesn't matter what the rules are as long as you know what they are and they're consistent. That's all you want. There could be any rules. I don't care. As long as they're consistently done and you know what they are, that's all that matters.
You said quite a few times sort of the difficulties in trying to find a way into IndyCar, especially with charters looming towards the start of next season. We know obviously budget has been a challenge for you. So could you sort of give any insight to how discussions are going and sort of your chances that you see of you being in the field, maybe 1 or 2 races or a full-time schedule next year?
Yeah, I think I'm quite confident we will have a seat next year. I've had good conversations with a couple of teams, and the ball's rolling on that. Again, there's talks of testing and talks of doing a test. But yeah, I'm pretty confident. I would say if I was to give you like a percentage chance right now, I would say we're probably like, I'm hoping we're close to like 80% likely, is my hope. But again, like you said, it all comes down to money. Like I wish we could find an extra $2 million just to pull out there, but unfortunately that's not how the world works sometimes. So yeah, we'll see. But it's going well, and I'm hoping that it'll come through.
And how frustrating a part of motorsport is that, like the money aspect, the business aspect, that, you know, some drivers might be able to pay their way into seats, and you have other drivers who might miss out on a career because of, you know, struggling for funding. So How frustrating is that, and how hard do you have to work as well as a driver to kind of overcome that as well?
At the end of the day, it's how it works. Every team is a business at the end of the day. Everyone's got to turn profit or at least break even. So, financially, it has to work out for them. And I completely understand that. It does suck for sure, but at the same time, you know what you got into. You understand that this is what this industry is like. Sometimes it's brutal. But I think the best thing you can do is just show what you've got on track and be the best person you can be. Work as best you can with sponsors and with people and the team, and show them a reason why you're a better candidate than someone else who could bring X amount more money. I think that's the best way to go about it. But yeah, it's a tricky one. But like I said, it's just part of the world. You just got to make the most of it.
And obviously, there are no seats, we suspect, at Andretti, but is that something you're keen to maintain, the relationship with Andretti? Maybe like we saw with Kirkwood at Foyt, is that something that you would consider? And I guess just how much of an impact have Andretti, and having that link to the IndyCar team, how much of an impact has that had on you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I've got to know the IndyCar team really well now. I know all the drivers quite well, especially Marcus. And then, yeah, just the team in general, obviously Rob, JF, and Michael. I would love to stay with Andretti. It's a great team. It's a great organization. But there's no contracts for future at the moment. It's honestly completely up to them if they would like to have me in the future. Obviously, they've got stuff going on in the background in Europe, so that might open up a spot in the future for me. But we'll see. I mean, I think at the moment my main goal is to have a good, firstly get into IndyCar and have a good rookie season, and then go from there. At the end of the day, I'd love to stay with Andretti, but we'll see what happens.
I absolutely hate to ask this, and we all hope this isn't the case, but do you sort of have a bit of peace of mind of exploring other options if IndyCar doesn't work out for you next year and beyond? Do you have other things you want to do, or?
I haven't put too much thought into it, to be honest with you, because I've been so focused on IndyCar. But I mean, obviously, the most likely thing I would end up doing if I can't do IndyCar would be like an LMP2 program, maybe an IMSA. I guess that's probably the most likely thing. Obviously, it's not where I want to be. But I think if it came down to it, I think I should be able to get a seat in an LMP2 car. But yeah, like I said, I think the main goal is obviously IndyCar.
And looking back at home, sort of last couple of years, the series has been televised. We know this was heavily influenced by Jamie coming into the series, which is obviously great. But from your perspective as a British driver who is at the front of the series, do you feel this has any benefit to sort of your reputation, having a Brit at the forefront for a series which is televised now?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's nice that you guys can watch it now easily, and it's great to kind of fly the English flag overseas. It's any person's dream to be able to play for their country, compete for their country, and do well. So it's great that they're now televising in the UK, and people in the UK can now watch it as well, and it's a lot more accessible. Yeah, and I get comments from people all the time back home who mention, telling me congratulations and stuff like that, which is nice to see. It's good that people do care and do watch, and I think it's only growing.
And just to close, Louis, because I know we're running out of time with you, there's obviously this real effort to try and get IndyCar growing back in the UK. And for everyone back home, just how much would it mean to you to be a British representative in IndyCar and, in some ways, an ambassador for IndyCar this side of the pond?
Yeah, I think it would mean, obviously it mean a lot. England is so Formula One central, which is just because there's the history of it. I would love to see an IndyCar race in England. I think that'd be awesome. Whether or not that happen, I don't know. But I think IndyCar's going in the right way, and I think it's expanding in the right way. And I'm hoping the series will only grow and there'll be more and more popular in the UK and around the world in general. But we'll wait and see what happens. But I'm looking forward to it.
Louis, that's what we've got for you. We really appreciate your time. We wish you the best of luck in Milwaukee. We're hoping to see you to the championship then. By the time this episode's out, you might have already done so. And if not, hope to see you at Nashville. So best of luck for the weekend, and we really appreciate your time.